Today, I am going to deliver a lecture on the definition of biodiversity, classification levels of biodiversity, and economic values of biodiversity. It is a general belief that species diversity is essential for the proper functioning of communities and for the emergence of community-level properties. Just as many different DNA-encoded enzymes are needed for a complex organism to function properly, so scientists believe are many kinds of species necessary to maintain community structure. In any diversity sufficient or are specific mixes of species necessary for the communities and ecosystems to function. One view is that a community is formed by the species that happen to arrive first, that the mix of species in a community is a matter of chance. The vegetation of an area is merely the resultant of two factors, the fluctuating and fortuitous immigration of plants, and an equally fluctuating and variable environment. According to the opposite view, in any fairly limited area, only a fraction of the forms that could theoretically do so actually form a community at any one time. Thus, the community really is an organized association of species is that it has a limited membership. Speciation and extinction are natural processes. Traditionally, from the Darwinian perspective, extinction is the fate of species which lose in the struggle for survival. But habitat loss due to human intervention for various reasons are the prime concern for species extinction. The term biodiversity was coined by Walter G. Rosen in 1985. It has been defined variously, such as the richness in variety and variability of species of all living organisms in a given region, habitat. A concise definition of biodiversity is the totality of genes, species, and ecosystems in a region, as given by IUCN UNEP in the year 1992. Biological diversity is the variety and variability among living organisms and the ecological complexes in which they occur. This concept can be subdivided into three levels as follows. Number one, genetic diversity. At finer levels of organization, biodiversity includes the genetic variation within species, both among geographically separated populations and among individuals within single population. The overall composition of genetic diversity include individual, population, chromosomes, genes, and nucleotides. Number two, species diversity or organizational diversity. Biodiversity at its most basic level includes the full range of species on Earth, from microorganisms such as viruses, bacteria, and protists through the multicellular kingdoms of plants, animals, and fungi. This particular diversity covers all the kingdom, phyla, families, genera, species, subspecies, population, and individuals. Number 3, community or ecological diversity. On a wider scale, biodiversity includes variations in the biological communities in which species live, the ecosystem in which communities exist, and the interactions among these levels. Community or ecological diversity encompasses all the biomes, bioregions, landscapes, ecosystems, habitats, needs, and population. Mathematical indices of biodiversity have also been developed to connote species diversity at different geographical scales as follows. A. Alpha diversity. This refers to number of species in a single community. This diversity comes closest to the popular concept of species richness and can be used to compare the number of species in different ecosystem types. B. Beta diversity. This refers to the degree to which species composition changes along an environmental gradient. Beta diversity is high, for example, if the species composition of most communities changes at successively higher elevations on a mountain slope, but is low if the same species occupy the whole mountain side. C. Gamma diversity. This applies to larger geographical scales and defined as the rate of which additional species are encountered as geographical replacements within a habitat type in different localities. Thus, gamma diversity is a species turnover rate with distance between sites of similar habitat or with expanding geographic area. Though conservation of biodiversity is advocated by all globally, this is very often assessed in terms of money. A new developing discipline that integrates economics, environmental science, and public policy and includes valuations of biodiversity in economic analysis is known as environmental economics or ecological economics. A major focus of environmental economics is to find methods for valuing the components of biodiversity. A number of approaches have been developed to assign economic values to genetic variations, species, communities, and ecosystem. These values include the marketplace or harvest, value of resources, the value provided by unharvested resources in their natural state, and the future value of resources. The economic values are divided as follows. A. Direct values. These are assigned to the products harvested by people, and B. Indirect values. These are assigned to benefits provided by biodiversity that do not involve harvesting or destroying the resource. Direct values, also known as use values and community values, can often be readily calculated by observing the activities of representative groups of people, by monitoring collection points for normal products, and by examining import-export statistics. direct values can be further divided as follows. A. Consumptive use value. This can be assigned to goods such as fuel, wood, and game that are consumed locally and do not figure in national and international market. B. Productive use value. This is assigned to produces that are harvested from the wild and sold in commercial markets both at national and international levels. Indirect values are assigned to biodiversity that provide economic benefits to people without consumption of the resource. Such benefits include water quality, soil protection, recreation, education, scientific research, regulation of climate, and producing future options for human society. Indirect values could be further divided as follows. Non-consumptive use value. This includes ecosystem productivity, protection of water resources, soil protection, climate regulation, waste disposal, species relationship, recreation and ecotourism, educational and scientific values, environmental monitoring, etc. Number 2. Option value. This value of a species is its potential to provide an economic benefit to human society at some point in the future. The growing biotechnology industry is finding new species to tackle pollution and fight problems of cancer, AIDS, etc. Number 3. Existence value. This is assigned to protect wildlife. People value charismatic animals such as lion, panda, birds, etc. in direct way to contribute money to conservation organization. Governments also spend money on conservation. Several ethical arguments can be made regardless of their economic value. The following assertion based on the intrinsic value of species are important for conservation of biodiversity. Number 1. Each species has a right to exist. Each species has value for its own sake and intrinsic value unrelated to human needs. Number 2. All species are interdependent. The loss of one species may have far-reaching consequences for other members of community. Number 3. Humans must live within the same ecological limitations as other species do. Number 4. People must take responsibility for their actions. Number 5. People have a responsibility to future generations. Number 6. Resources should not be wasted. Number 7. A respect for human life and human diversity is compatible with a respect for biodiversity. Number 8. Nature has spiritual and aesthetic values that transcend economic value. Number 9. Biodiversity is needed to determine the origin of life. Communities with high species diversity may cope with long-term environmental fluctuations better than communities with few species. It is generally believed that species diversity is essential for the proper functioning of communities and for the emergence of community-level properties. Habitat loss due to human intervention for various reasons are the prime concern for species extinction. Biodiversity play an important role in enhancing the life supporting system. Though there are several management systems which have been implemented towards conservation of biodiversity, natural resources, implementation of legislation against illegal poaching or hunting, etc., we should individually participate for eco-restoration by implementing continued conservation practices and appropriate management.